Hello, guys and gals, and welcome. So today we have, well, actually we had this yesterday, but we weren't really sure exactly what to think of these, and I wasn't sure if I wanted to make a video on them, but we're going to make a video on them today. So in the data mine for the patch, there are all these recipes. Each one of the recipes uses a specific northern, eastern, deep, southern, etc., and they're all very specific recipes. They seem to be designed around magical items only, so not rares, not uniques, etc. There do seem to be a couple in here that seem to be designed around uniques, and most of them seem to be adding on negative resistance onto things. Like, for instance, you can add negative resistance onto a mystical grand charm, basically taking an existing magical charm and then using this recipe, which is a perfect diamond, a mal, a northern worldstone, and that of course allows you to basically create the new negative res version of that, which is actually really powerful because you could have, say, like a plus 145 life skiller, or you could have a really good max damage AR charm with some life on it, and then you could put this on there and add an additional magic resistance or fire resistance or so forth and so on. This is going to make a really interesting change in the way that the game functions, because people are going to be hunting for these. They're going to be trying to craft these, and they're going to try and get like the optimal versions of them. Obviously, there's a different version for every single element. So the mystical seems to be the magic. The breaching seems to be the physical. The incendiary obviously is the fire. The magnetic seems to be the lightning, and of course the Galid is the cold. And then of course we have the virulent, which is the poison, and I think that's pretty much it. Obviously, there's going to be some really good ones for this. Off the top of my head, because it's magic items, there are some very good magic items in the game. Most notably, things like magical, like +3 skill, 20% IAS gloves. So that's going to be a recipe that people are probably going to want to use a lot because, like, for instance, if you're a lightning Javazon and you want to get yourself a pair of 320s, and then you put the magnetic recipe on there to roll it to negative 3% lightning res. Now you have a pair of 320s that has negative 3% lightning res, and now it's even more best in slot than what you were currently using. There's also amulet recipes. So, for instance, those really nice amulets like the one I used on my paladin last season, which was the I think it was Prismatic of Life Everlasting, which is the 25 all res and like a 30 all res and then 25 DR, so like physical damage reduction. You could get negative res on that one as well. You could also get negative res on the +3 skills with like faster cast and things like that. This is going to really bring a lot of the blue items into the mix, because those blue items, which already had like a foothold in essentially being some of the best equipment in the game, are now going to be even better. So you're going to be able to take some of those amazing blue items that can work their way into just about any build and make them even better. Keeping in mind, like, for instance, a really nice jeweler's armor. So, like, if you had a JMod armor that you would want to put like 4 facets in, which is actually a pretty common build for a lot of like things that need large amounts of negative res and large amounts of positive skill damage, you could potentially get even more negative res by taking that JMod armor, jeweler's mod of deflecting, or jeweler's mod of simplicity, or jeweler's mod of blah blah blah. I call them all JMods, so I get on my case about it, sure. But basically, any of those armors that you're going to try and get the 4 sockets on with some other beneficial effect, now you can get another negative resistance on that armor as well, which makes those JMod armors even more powerful. And it's like this across the board, because there are some really good blue items in the game, and there's going to be like just amazing crafts. Now, obviously, this has some connotations. The connotations are, number one, that these Northern Worldstone shards are going to be a trade currency, without a doubt. So whenever you find these Northern Worldstone shards, the Eastern Worldstone shards, the Deep Worldstone shards, the Southern Worldstone shards, and so forth and so on, whenever you find these things are literally going to be currency in this season. Now, of course, how do you rank them as currency? Well, in general, you're going to rank them the same way that you would rank basically any of the elements, right? So if we were to do the elements in order, and you were to say which one's the best element, which one's the worst element, right? Let's start with the worst. The worst element is by far usually poison, usually followed by fire, which then leads to lightning, which then leads to um, well, we can probably put cold in between lightning and fire. And then this is debatable. You could switch and swap these two right here. And then finally, there's usually magic at the top, which is specific to, like Hammerdins and like bone necromancers and stuff. In this particular case, this is going to get shaken up a little bit. I'm pretty sure poison's still going to be at the bottom. I mean, I'm sorry, poison, but you're probably still going to be at the bottom. The warlock does have some really good fire skills, which is probably going to bring fire into the limelight this season. So we can probably take fire and push this up to about here. Lightning is gonna and cold are gonna take a back seat because unfortunately, the warlock doesn't have any lightning or fire build or lightning or cold builds really. You could potentially come up with some interesting ones, like maybe using rift and like cleave or something, or coming up with some interesting ideas. There is a consume that actually provides negative cold resistance, and there is a consume that provides negative lightning resistance. I did my testing yesterday, and that is of course torque Ice Fist. So if you eat Torque Ice Fist, he gives you negative 45% enemy cold. And if you eat Brem Spark Fist, he gives you negative, like I think it's like 50% enemy lightning. But for the most part, like there's really not a lot of builds that come with cold and lightning. Yes, there will still be characters that are using cold and lightning, and of course, there's always going to be those standby sorceresses that play cold. So cold will have some usefulness, especially with the Sunder Charms. Like for instance, the bot's always trying to buy the Sunder Charms. Good luck this season because the Sunder Charms are extremely rare. Fire and magic are probably going to be the most expensive this season because fire and magic are two of the elements that are most prevalent on the new character. And then, of course, we also have physical. Now, physical was usually back here between cold and poison. It was usually above poison, but it was pretty low. This season, with all the additional resistance negatives that they're offering, like the really good sword that offers permanent curse, the fact that you can like tame a beast that has the cursed modifier, there's going to be a lot of amplified damage just floating around this season. And I have a feeling that the physical Sunder is probably going to find its way a lot higher in the list this season. So I would probably say that the physical fire and magic are going to be the highest, like as far as value goes, and the lightning, cold, and poison are going to be the backseat ones, which means that if we look at the list, you can clearly see that the fire is the deep worldstone shard and the Io rune, as well as the perfect ruby. So these are going to be like main items in the trade market for this season. According, like, and I say this, but like, we don't know whether these recipes are going to be enabled for ladder or not. All we know is that they're in the data mine. So keeping that in mind, we're still going to take a look at it anyway. We have the Northern Worldstone, the Pul Rune, and the Perfect Amethyst. So Perfect Amethysts are going to become even more valuable than they already are because people, of course, use those to craft their caster amulets. And so now we have a competing recipe that is also going to be building up negative enemy physical resistance through basically your charms and whatnot. If you keep this in mind, I mean, taking a regular character into account, I mean, of course, you have like most people have what is it, like usually around 8 grand charms times 3 is 24%, and then you usually have like another 8 small charms times 1, which is of course 8 plus the original 24, and you're looking at like 32% negative physical resistance, which I would not shirk. That is actually extremely massive because if you think about it, a Sunder Charm can break a monster down to 95. So if you break a monster down to 95 and then apply 32% to that, that means the monster's at 63. And then if you amp them, then they go down even lower. The physical builds this season could be absolutely insane, and like the Northern Worldstone Shard, the Pul, and the Perfect Amethyst are going to be part of creating those. And you're going to need a lot. I mean, as an example, assuming that you have 8 grand charms plus 8 small charms, and then maybe even you do like Another couple items, like let's say you do a pair of gloves, so you can do at least like plus one more, and maybe you do like a really nice amulet or circlet, so another plus one. So you're looking at somewhere around like 18 of these crafts, which means that a full character gear out would need 18 Northern Worldstone shards, 18 pole runes, and 18 perfect amethysts, which is going to really push the market as far as like the value of those things. So when you find a Northern Worldstone shard or when you find these gems, I mean, honestly, at this point, I would be picking up every gem. I mean, literally every gem. Chips, flaweds, like the whole 9 yards, regulars, flawlesses, all of them. Pick up all of them. There's no reason not to because they added the gem storage. So pick them all up and you're going to start using them for trade currency because I can almost guarantee the perfect amethyst and the perfect ruby are going up like crazy. And then we have the magic ones, which is the mystical. The mystical is perfect diamond, so perfect diamond for the first time actually has a really good recipe. And then the Malrune, and then the Northern Worldstone Shard. So we can pretty much say that the Northern Worldstone Shard, the Deep Worldstone Shard, and the Northern Worldstone Shard is the same one for both physical and magical, so that one's going to be even more valuable. That's actually kind of crazy. Sounds to me like if we were to rank these right now by the shards themselves, I would definitely vote that the Northern Worldstone Shard is going to be the most valuable, so it's going to be number one. Followed up very quickly by the Northern to the Deep. So I would definitely say that number two is most likely going to be the Deep Worldstone Shard. And then after that, it's really like anybody's guess. The poison is most definitely going to be dead last, though. So we've got, 5 shards? So number 3, number 4, number 5. So I would definitely put the Western Worldstone Shard at the bottom of this list as far as value goes, which leaves the Cold and the Lightning. Now, that's kind of a hard one. There are some really good lightning builds in the game, and sorceresses are really popular early on, especially because of their cold damage. But it's going to be difficult to get access to the Sunders this season because they made the Sunders far more rare. So I don't know if these two are going to like flip flop or switch places, but I'm going to take a guess, and I'm going to say that the Southern Worldstone Shard is probably going to be just under than the Eastern Worldstone Shard. Dang. Dang. Now, there's a couple more little things that you got to take into consideration here. So, northern, southern, eastern, blah, 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 blah. These are actually acts. Okay? So, each one of these is actually a representation of an act that you can terrorize. Certain acts are going to have a higher value just simply because of what acts that they can terrorize, which is going to lead toward specific values also affecting this. So, besides the elemental alignment of these specific things, there's also the acts that they're capable of terrorizing for either, farming loot, or, for instance, for going into the games to like your favorite act or something along those lines. So let's go ahead and take a look real quick at the Worldstone shards. I do have some of them already. We actually ran a full game one time. So we have the Act 1 is right here. Eastern is the Act 2 one. Southern, or was it Southern Worldstone Shard is Act 3. Deep Worldstone Shard is Act 4. And I believe it's Northern. So the one that's probably going to be the most expensive is the Act 5 one, is what it looks like. And I do believe that the Western one is Act 1. So it looks like the Western one is going to be the cheapest, but this is also the one that spawns like TZ Andy, right? I did hear that they were messing around with TZ Andy's drop table, so TZ Andy might not be the best place to farm anymore. Um, Another thing is that each one of these is going to terrorize the act boss of that specific zone. So obviously, Act One would be Andariel, Act Two would be, like Duriel, Act Three would be Mephisto, Act Four is Diablo, and Act Five is Baal. Right. Well, these statues, which are the Talix statues, come from specific ones of these as well, and so that's also going to affect things because, like for instance, if the statues, specific statues, I think Duriel is going to end up being the rarest. The Act Two one might be a little bit worth a little bit more, right? Because you need more Act Two statues to be able to run the Uber or the Colossal Ancients, which is going to be interesting. All in all, I think that these crafting recipes are definitely going to shake things up. We're going to see a lot of changes in the way that the game functions. I would say that at the end game, farming these shards, no matter which shard you get, is going to be a good thing. There will be ones that are probably going to be worth more than the others, and we'll have to see how that settles as the game goes on. Also, all of these recipes requiring mid runes is going to increase the price of the mid runes rather dramatically. So pulls, mals, ios, fouls, lums, coes, lems, etc., that are used in these recipes are definitely going to increase the overall value of those mid runes. So I wouldn't be surprised if you see like mal runes and co runes and pull runes being worth more this season, because for 23, I mean just to give like a quick math example, assuming that you need around 23 to cap out your character for negative res, right? Assuming you don't make any mistakes, by the way, because some of these roll. Like, for instance, the Mystical Grand Charm rolls between 1 to 3%. So if you roll a 1%er, you're probably going to want to re-roll it, right? Times the number of players, which we recently got a confirmation that there are millions of players from Blizzard. They didn't exactly state an exact number, but they said there are still millions of people playing Diablo 2. So let's multiply that by, like at the very least, let's multiply it by 2 million. That means that you need 46 million crafts to deck everybody out. Now, of course, not everybody is going to get decked out in these new crafting recipes, but you kind of get the idea is that this is going to be a constant and basically nagging source toward the economy, forcing these items to become more valuable. So your gems are going to become more valuable. Your mid runes are going to become more powerful, valuable, and these Northern Worldstone shards, these Worldstone shards in general, are going to be very valuable. So finding them at any point is going to be a big boon to your character, and you can probably just use them as trade bait. We'll have to see exactly like how they settle in terms of their overall value. But looking at these recipes, I can tell you right now that every single one of these recipes is going to be very good. Like, I can imagine several items, very good items, that you would potentially use these on. Like, for instance, even just boots, which most people might poo poo the boots, right? But you can find 40% increased run walk speed with like one really solid resistance, say like 40% to a specific resistance. And then you can use this on the boots and you can get your negative res as well as 40% run walk speed and a solid resistance, right? So, like, that's a solid pair of boots in my opinion. Like, I could see myself using those on some of these elemental builds. Like, if I was a fire build, I would probably grab myself a nice pair of boots, find myself some 40% run walkers. I would see if I can get fire res specifically on them to cancel out the sunder, which you can usually do just by shopping. So like if you go over here to like Geed, or you go to Charsey, you can easily shop, just go back and forth inside of town and look for the 40% run walks with like the various mods. You can also shop for the J mods there, and you usually want to make sure you re-roll the map until you get the doorway right here. And then you're just going to want to run in and out. And you just run in and out over and over again, and you look for those beautiful items. You're looking for like 320 gloves. You're looking for like 40% increased run walk speed with a good mod, a good secondary mod. It needs a really good secondary mod, like a resistance. You're looking for the 4-socket jeweler's mod with some other beneficial thing, like jeweler's mod of the Colossus, or jeweler's mod of the whale, or like jeweler's mod of simplicity, or jeweler's mod of I think there's a really good one that gives you like 75% poison length reduction. There's a couple really nice ones that you could potentially find in here. As far as circlets and diadems and stuff like that, you can't shop those. You could potentially gamble them. And that could actually be a really interesting source too, because quite honestly, those are going to be ridiculous this season. Um, really good circlets. So if you have a circlet and it has a really good modifier on it, and I think I actually have a character with a similar type circlet on it, unless I already deleted that character. But basically, it's essentially it's a circlet that comes with +3 to a specific skill set. And then on top of the +3 to the specific skill set, it's also going to come with the additional sockets, right? So you're usually looking for something that has both the sockets and the skills, and hopefully maybe even another mod. You can get 2 sockets with 2 mods, which is actually really good. I was really hoping I had one on this character, but it doesn't look like I do. But what you're looking for is you're going to be looking for a helmet specifically that has the +3 to the specific tab skills you're looking for, like fire skills, for instance, on a sorceress. And then also with something like faster cast. Then you take a Delarzic and you get 2 sockets. You put 2 facets in there, and then you would use this recipe on it, and you could get more negative res as well. And that's going to make those helmets like completely amazing. They're going to be ridiculous. Also, similarly, like for instance, on my poison character, which I think I have on here, the poison characters utilize things like the jeweler's mod armors. And I know I have Toxic Jab, Why You At, Penance, Yolok. Just trying to give you guys some examples here. It's so many characters. I'm so glad they added some extra dash tabs. There we go. Nox. That's a good one. So in her case, her best in slot armor is actually going to be a specific piece of gear that has 4 sockets in it. So you're looking for facets, right? You want as many facets as you can possibly get. Well, in this particular case, one of my best in slot pieces is actually a 4-socket Griswold's, or not Griswold's, a 4-socket blue armor, which I know I had in here at some point. I think I might have shoved it into a stash tab at some point. Let's check the shared stash on my other character. Boom. I was actually holding on to that particular piece of armor specifically for her. It was one of the ones that I think Bruzak shopped for me. Yeah, here it is right here. So this is a Jeweler's Armor of Stability. So this is a 4-socket blue armor that has 24% faster hit recovery, which is really good. You can also get ones that have increased life. You can get ones that have negative requirements, and so forth and so on. So for the recipes, if I was playing a poison character, which is what this character is, I would then go over here, find the virulent armor, and then craft that up. And I would try and get that 8% negative enemy poison res, which is going to stack on additional poison res on top of the facets that I would normally be using. And I think I have some other J-Mods armors hiding in here somewhere. I think, yeah, here's a Jeweler's Armor. Jeweler's Dust Shroud of the Nova Shield, which is kind of interesting for a sorceress, since you can actually synergize that, so which means that when you get hit, you would actually be pumping out a little bit of damage, which is kind of neat. There's also some other versions of these particular armors that you can find, or you can just shop them basically, which is kind of crazy, or you can find them. So picking up blue items is going to be really good this season. Picking up blue boots, blue gloves, blue armors, and looking for those beautiful J mods, shopping for them as well. And speaking of shopping for them, Bruzak was shopping for a pair of claws one season. He was looking through Anya over and over again, trying to find those absolutely amazing, like trapper claws and whatnot. Those are going to be crazy this season too, because you're going to be able to add lightning res to them. So you're going to shop for your absolutely crazy lightning claw, and then you're going to pull up the recipe that has to do with your specific weapon. Like for instance, in this particular case, it would be the magnetic weapon, and then you're going to craft the 4% increased lightning resistance, negative lightning res, onto those ridiculously expensive claws, which is now going to make those claws even more absolutely insane, right? All in all, I'm really impressed with these recipes. Hopefully, they get added in with the ladder. I'm not exactly sure when they're planned to come out, or even if they will come out. But I thought it's definitely worth a video to kind of like bring this to you guys' attention, go over all of the various possibilities that you could have with these, and how they basically could change the economy. As always, be sure to hit the like button and subscribe button if you enjoy the content that I put out. I'm working toward 100,000 subscribers, so it definitely helps. Every single button press helps because it's going to get me closer to that plaque. My YouTube plaque is at 100,000, so this is going to be fun. And as always, keep watching.